Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Have a question for the show or need assistance with your retirement plan? Give Philip a call today. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815.
It's a little bit of a sticker shock for all those gifts my true love gave to me, starting with that partridge in a pear tree. Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, and we're going to have some fun today, starting with the Christmas Price Index. You're going to learn a lot about what's going on with our economy as we talk about the cost of all of the gifts from the song the 12 Days of Christmas. But before we get into that, Philip, I want to welcome you back to the studio. This really puts you in the holiday spirit, if you weren't already, I imagine.
Inflation, right?
Oh, yeah. Inflation kind of puts a damper on things. But before we jump into the Christmas Price Index and start talking about what these different things cost and how this reflects what's going on in our economy today, anything you're looking forward to this holiday season or any favorite memories from holidays in the past, either with the kids, the grandkids, or back when you were a kid yourself?
Well, a couple things, right? I mean, if I look backwards, historically, one of the fun things we used to do, because I moved from Missouri when I was like 8 years old. So, but all my family, I still had family, cousins and grandparents up there. So we'd haul up there quite often for Christmas. And so it was always fun. We'd all get together at my grandmother's house, all my cousins and aunts and uncles, and we just have a great time. It was fun to do and really made some memories of that. I remember snow one year. We actually made an igloo.
Fun.
My brother and I. We made the front page of the newspaper there in Cape Girardeau. So,
that's fun. Yeah,
Florida kids build igloo.
Perfect.
Fun time. So
I love it.
But this year, Jen, I'm really looking forward to, we have a new grandson.
Yep.
He's about 5 months old now. And so we're looking forward to that. We'll have all the kids and grandkids at the house for a week. And looking forward to that at Christmas time. Yeah,
that will be so great. And I love your childhood holiday memories too, Philip. It was literally over the river and through the woods, like crossing the Mississippi to get over
right,
there
exactly.
to your family. Well, the Christmas Price Index is what we're going to talk about today. And I imagine for you and your wife as grandparents, the cost of Christmas, you're just going to do what you got to do to get presents for those grandkids. It's not really the same as when your kids
That's
were.
Right. Hey, it doesn't matter what.
Don't worry about it. That's right.
You're going to spend the money.
That's right.
You're going to spend the money.
You absolutely will. But the Christmas Price Index, this is kind of a lighthearted way to learn about the economy. We add up the gifts from the song, the 12 Days of Christmas, and we can compare what those things cost today to what they cost in the past. And here is what's interesting about what's going on this year, Philip. I guess you kind of notice it when you go through the song. It's a very bird-oriented song. There's so many birds in this. The gifts are so many birds. The cost of birds and caring for them is really pushing up some of the costs. So the cost of turtle doves, French hens, geese a-laying, swans a-swimming, all that, they went up by 20%. And here's the other thing. High fertilizer costs pushed up the cost of the pear tree by 28.4%. So, kind of funny to talk about how much it costs to buy turtle doves and a partridge in a pear tree. But when you talk about those fertilizer costs, Philip, and you think about what that does to farmers and growers and then us as consumers, really something that we ought to be shocked by. 28% increase in that.
Yeah, it's a huge increase. I found that first one very interesting because you're right. The pear tree went up, astronomically. The partridge, it didn't go up at all. So it's like, okay, that bird didn't matter. But you get to the 3 French hens. Now that went up substantially.
Yeah. Well, because they're French and they're fancy, I guess.
I see. That's what it is. Okay.
Yes, that's what it is. And then higher wages and labor costs for the performers means it costs more for the lords a-leaping and the drummers drumming and the pipers piping. Those costs went up 14.5% for all the performers in the song. And then, Philip, the price for the gold rings, this is really where it's at. That went up by 39% over last year. 1 year increase of 39% for the 5 gold ring. I have to ask, as we talk about this song, do you remember the Muppets version of this where it's Miss Piggy singing out the 5 gold rings line every single time?
Yes.
So,
Oh, yes.
Just
How can you forget that one, right?
I always have Miss Piggy in my head when I think about this part. But again, this is a lighthearted take on things, but talk about how this reflects what's really happening with our economy when you look at high fertilizer costs, higher wages and labor, what's going on, with commodities and that type of thing.
Well, you're right. And that continues to be the one thing that we have battled in 2022, right? Is inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just be honest. We're spoiled, right? Because our inflation numbers year over year until 2022 have been 1.5%, 2%,
right.
Nothing extravagant. But 2022 has really laid us out because we've seen inflation up over 8-9%.
Yeah.
And then you look at some specific food costs, and those things have gone up astronomically compared to even the true inflation number. So it is painful. It's been a painful year. And we are seeing some signs of it relenting a little bit, but that little bit of relenting isn't a big deal when we're used to 1% and 2%.
Yeah. It's really, really massive. So let me just get you here to the bottom line on this, Philip. The total cost of the gifts of the 12 days of Christmas for 2022 is a record-breaking total of $45,523.27. That much for all the gifts in the song, The 12 Days of Christmas. A huge, huge number, Philip. It just continues to go up.
Yeah, it really is. And that's about a little over 10%, almost 10.5% from where it was in 2021, which is a little bit more, right, than the inflation number that we talk about.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so again, when they first started calculating this, I don't know if you saw this on the website when I shared all of this with you in preparation for today's show, but when they first started calculating the cost of the gifts in the song in the 80s, everything totaled around $20,000. Today it's over $45,000. So kind of a fun way to look at inflation. It's funny to talk about what a partridge in a pear tree costs today, or 7 swans a swimming, or whatever. But how could inflation potentially impact our retirement? That is the important lesson of this more fun topic here on the show today, right?
That's right. Let's not lose track and face of what we're really trying to talk about here. And that's retirement, right? That's the big thing. And it is, when inflation was at 1 or 2%, if people could, they knew what next year was going to be, they could kind of, know where they were. But when we start getting big increases like we saw in 2022, that makes it hard to plan, right? For what it's going to look like. It even makes it more important now to make sure that you have some kind of written plan in place with some worst case scenarios built into it. So that you're going to be okay if we get a couple back-to-back years with this kind of inflation.
Yeah, so important. And so as we talk about putting together a plan here, Philip, and kind of trying to learn how to be proactive with some of these things, if you'd rather give your spouse, your family, the gift of confidence in the future instead of the 6 geese a laying, or the how many is it? 4 French hens? Is it 4 French hens?
Yeah.
3 or 4 French hens, however many you're going to get.
Three French hens.
That's right. Thank you. What should you do to get started on helping create that financial strategy for the future if you want to give your gift and give your spouse and your family the gift of confidence instead of the gifts from this song?
Well, first is starting in time, right? It's not waiting until that last minute to put together some kind of plan of retirement, or doing it late, right? I've already retired. Now, don't get me wrong. Doing it is better than not doing it at all.
Better late than never, right?
That's right. So let's don't forget that. But if you're thinking about retiring, let's just pick year 2025. Well, we probably should have started 2 years ago. We want to start that 5 years before we're going to retire to really start to put things in place, making sure that the way we look at our portfolio, that we make sure that the risk is really and truly where it needs to be, because we don't want to see, like this year, right? 2022, the markets have declined substantially. And we don't want that to happen to people the year before they're going to retire. Now, all of a sudden, they've seen their savings, drop by 25%. That would not be good. That's why I think it's important that 5 years before we start putting a plan in place. And we need to make sure what we have is going to last us throughout our lifetime. And Jen, that's really and truly why the last several years we worked hard on developing our process, our core retirement design, allowing people to design that retirement they always dreamed of. But it starts with, you can't move forward until you know where you are. And so that's really the first thing that we look at in our core retirement design is, where are you at right now? How much risk do you have in your current portfolio versus how much risk you should have in your current portfolio? And then really diving into the cost associated with all that stuff and making sure we're on the right path to create that retirement we always dreamed of. And we end up in the end of this process of creating a written retirement income plan, knowing that mathematically we know that our money's going to last as long as we need it to. So not putting some pie in the sky numbers out there, the market's going to do 8-9%. No, we want to drop those numbers down to what we saw in the previous years in terms of what we thought that fixed interest rates were going to do, right? 2-3%. Because if it will work on 2-3%, it'll work on 8-9%, right? We'll just have extra money that we can use. Listen, folks, if you don't have that written retirement income plan and you're getting close to that retirement age, give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. I want to encourage you, heading into this new year that we're getting ready to go into, it's important that if you're going to retire in the next 5 years, that you have that written retirement plan in place. Give us a call to get started on your core retirement design. That's 863-285-3815. Or, Jen, you can go to our website at statlerfinancial.com. There's a link to our calendar right there where you can schedule your own appointment on our calendar.
All right, very good. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. We've got more insights from Philip coming up on the other side of the break. Stay with us. We'll be back.
Hi, this is Philip. On behalf of everybody here at Statler Financial, we want to wish you a safe and happy holiday season.
Philip Statler at Statler Financial often talks about the difference between retirement savings and retirement income. It isn't necessarily how much money you've saved that's most important. It's having a steady stream of income in retirement no matter how long you live. Philip has strategies that can help you create consistent monthly income for the rest of your life. He can help you make important decisions today so you can have the income you need in retirement. Having a big nest egg is great, but how will it provide you with income you need for as long as you live? Call Philip Statler at Statler Financial to find out. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Turn your portfolio into a plan with help from Philip today. 863-285-3815. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. Philip, millions of Americans' money is in something like a traditional IRA. In fact, the total value of all of those accounts in 2020 was more than $19 trillion nationally. A lot of money in these types of accounts, right?
There is a lot of money there, a lot of money. So, and it's easier that way, right? Because a lot of people have 401ks. And so they're able to build up that savings. And if it's not a 401k, it's a 403b or some deferred comp. There's a lot of different retirement accounts out there that they've been able to put money into. Now, so you've already made the right decision, folks. You've made the right decision. You're putting money away and to save for your retirement. And that's the right choice. Mm-hmm. But I want to help you learn about all the other decisions you need to make when it comes to taking money out of your retirement accounts.
Right.
You've done a good job of putting money in. The secret is, how do you get it out most effectively and pay the least amount of taxes on it? And that's the trick, Jen.
Yeah, that is a really good point there. And as we get into some of these options for your accounts, that's what you have to understand. The type of the 401k or IRA, the type of account you have, Philip, that really matters when it comes to how your retirement income will be taxed. This is not something that we can afford to overlook, right?
Absolutely not. You need to understand how those plans work in terms of pre-tax and after-tax money. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks, they're putting money in a 401k and they don't know, is it going into a pre-tax or an after-tax, right? The pre-tax is like a traditional IRA. You never pay tax on that money. So when you pull money out of it, you're going to have to pay some tax. If you've already paid tax on that money, after-tax money, there's a lot of 401ks that have Roth provisions in them, like a Roth IRA. And so, hey, if you've got a Roth provision and you're in a lower tax bracket, that may be what you need to be doing. So pre-tax accounts are pretty much your 401ks. Though some of them now actually do have some Roth provisions within them that you can make that election to use. Traditional IRAs, 403bs, which in my lifetime I've only seen one Roth 403b. You don't see those very often, and it's got to be a real specialized deal. Mm-hmm. And then 457s, which are deferred comp plans, are all tax deferred pre-tax accounts. Post-tax are going to be your Roth IRAs, and that's pretty easy, and your Roth provisions within your 401ks.
So with your 401k or your IRA, you need to know the rules for taking money out of those accounts. Not only do we need to understand how they will be taxed, but Philip, what do we need to know about what we call required minimum distributions? That's when we have to start taking money out. What's a real high level thing we need to know about?
So let's talk about required minimum distributions, Jen. Yep. So first, let's talk about the acronym, right? Because that's what people need to understand is when somebody says your RMD, that is the acronym for your required minimum distribution. That's what you'll see that more often than not. Hey, have you taken your RMD? And people will look at me like I've got three eyeballs.
What the heck is that?
What is that? But it's easy, right? Your required minimum distribution is your RMD. So a couple things to realize is that there's been some changes with the Secure Act that was passed back in the end of 2019. And one of the changes was that now the required minimum distribution, that RMD, now you get to take it at 72 instead of 70 and a half. So that's a big deal, right? So it pushes it out a year and a half further down the road than what you had to before. And so you need to know that. The other thing you need to know is that RMDs do not apply to Roth IRA. So if you have a Roth IRA, guess what? You don't have to take any money out of it if you don't want to.
Okay.
Government doesn't care. You've already paid tax on that money, right? So they don't care. You also, your 401ks are subject to RMDs. Mm-hmm. The only exemption there is if you are over 72, still working for your current employer whose 401k that you're contributing to.
Okay.
You don't have to take any money out of it as long as you're working.
Okay.
But if you stop working in June, guess what? You have to take an RMD out of that account if you're over 72.
Okay. So if you are still, because you would still be in that phase of contributing to it if you're still working. So that's why they can't force you to start taking money out. Okay.
Yep.
But again,
so that's the case.
But again, this is where things start to get a little bit complicated and really important for us to have somebody who can help us make sure that we understand the rules. So, Philip, just talk real quickly about what your process looks like for helping us analyze what's going on with our money and what are some options that we need to consider. Tell me what your process is like.
So when we look at it, the first thing we want to do is have a 30-minute phone call with somebody, right? We want to understand what their big concerns are, where they are, and we want to make sure that we've got a plan in place that's going to help them. If not, then I want to point them in the right direction to make sure they get the help they need, and they're going to be going down the right path. If I can't help them, I want to make sure I give them enough and point them in the right direction where they can get the help they need. That's number one. Number two is we want to walk through and put together ultimately an income plan for them. We want to start out by making sure that they don't have too much risk in their portfolio. We want to make sure that we have a plan in place for taking money out of their retirement accounts in the most effective and tax efficient way as possible. That's why we developed our core retirement design. And you can give us a call to schedule that 30-minute phone consultation. It's that easy, Jen. Just give us a call at 863-285-3815 and tell the receptionist, hey, I want to schedule a 30-minute consultation with Philip. It's that simple. We'll reach out, we'll give you a call, and we'll have a conversation about where you are and where you're trying to get to.
That number again, 863-285-3815 for that quick conversation. There's a lot you can uncover there. Talking today about 401k and IRA decisions. There's a couple more things I want to make sure that we get to, Philip, before our next break. When we're talking about taking money out of our accounts, there are taxes that can apply when we are withdrawing income, which we've spent some time talking about here. Also, there are penalties that can apply if we don't follow the rules. And this is a really big deal. What do we need to know as a retiree about the penalties with those required minimum distributions if you don't do this the right way?
Absolutely, Jen. That is so true. They are substantial penalties. And I'm going to talk about, before I did the RMD one, I want to talk about the early retiree one.
Oh, okay. Sure.
So look, if you're not 59 and a half, because there's folks that retire at 55, right?
Sure.
And 57. Well, if you're not 59 and a half, then you can't start taking money out of your IRA without paying a 10% penalty for early withdrawal. There are some caveats for 401ks. If you play by some specific rules, you might have access to that money, but your IRAs you don't have access to until you hit that 59 and a half. So that's a 10% penalty if you take money out of your IRA prior to that.
Wow.
Now the RMD, let's say that you're 72 and you forgot to take your RMD. Well, that can be a problem because if you don't take your required minimum distribution, there is a 50% penalty that the IRS assesses for that missed RMD. So let's say you're supposed to make $1,000 RMD, required minimum distribution, that year, and you didn't do it. The IRS can come back and charge you $500 penalty for not taking it out, and you still have to take it out the next year and pay tax on it.
Holy moly.
So it's kind of a double whammy there, Jen.
Yeah. And as it turns out, Philip, even death is an excuse
That's
to
right.
skip
No,
this,
not
right?
excuse. Hey, even the year you die, somebody's got to take that RMD out.
Yeah, so if you inherit that, so this is, obviously, if you're the one who dies, it doesn't matter to you, but if you inherit that IRA from a non-spouse, from a parent, then it's on you to make sure that's been taken by December 31st of the year that the death occurs. So it's not like, mom died and now we don't have to worry about this anymore. No, somebody still has to do that.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And get this, we talk about the Secure Act, and they're actually, earlier in the year, we spent some time with Ed Slott, and he went through. There's new proposed regs out there when it comes to beneficiary IRAs that you inherit from non-spouses. And those rules have changed substantially. So if you're not, working with somebody that understands those and is on top of all those new IRA rules, that can be a problem, especially if you just inherited somebody's IRA.
Right.
I got to tell you, it's a big change that just came through the pipeline that people need to be aware of.
And this is why it's so important to talk about having some of these difficult conversations ahead of time, because, Philip, if you are the person who inherits an IRA, because you're the beneficiary from somebody who passed away, you're going to be dealing with the emotions of that loss and that death. And I feel pretty confident in saying I can guarantee the last thing you want to be thinking about is messing with RMDs and thinking about getting this right, because you're dealing with your own grief. And this is why we talk about getting this done ahead of time. If you're the person who owns this and you're leaving it to somebody, do the planning that you need to do so that way they're not scrambling to react to this. You want to make sure things are set up. Because again, Philip, when we talk about these RMDs, Forbes says required minimum distributions, they can trigger the highest penalty in the tax code if you don't follow the rules. You do not want these steep penalties and potentially higher taxes swiping away at your retirement savings, leaving you with just a fraction of the money that you were counting on for your retirement.
You're absolutely right. If you make a little mistake with your required minimum distribution from your IRA or your other retirement accounts, the penalty for not taking that full amount of your RMD is 50% of the amount that you should have taken, in addition to the income taxes on that distribution. Now, listen, I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. They could trigger higher taxes on your Social Security benefits. And get this, they can cause higher Medicare premium surtax down the road. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up those steep penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes. So listen, for folks today, if you saved at least $150,000 for retirement, give us a call at 863-285-3815 and let's schedule a 30-minute call to make sure that you're doing things the right way and on the right track for the retirement you always dreamed of. Again, that number is 863-285-3815. I want to help make sure that you have the retirement you always dreamed of by walking through our core retirement design. Again, all you have to do is give us a call, 863-285-3815, and schedule your 30-minute phone call. It's that simple, folks. Don't leave it to chance.
Whether it's a 401k or an IRA that you have for retirement, one thing is certain, you cannot treat that retirement account like an ATM. Spending down your savings too quickly and running out of money is an option that you just cannot afford. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back.
Philip Statler at Statler Financial often talks about the difference between retirement savings and retirement income. It isn't necessarily how much money you've saved that's most important. It's having a steady stream of income in retirement no matter how long you live. Philip has strategies that can help you create consistent monthly income for the rest of your life. He can help you make important decisions today so you can have the income you need in retirement. Having a big nest egg is great, but how will it provide you with income you need for as long as you live? Call Philip Statler at Statler Financial to find out. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Turn your portfolio into a plan with help from Philip today. 863-285-3815. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. Check him out online at statlerfinancial.com. Or as we get back into it, if you hear something you want to get some answers on, 863-285-3815 is how you can have that conversation with Philip today. That's 863-285-3815. Talking today about 401k and IRA decisions, and whether it is a 401k or an IRA that you have for retirement, one thing is certain, you cannot treat this account like a big old ATM where you just go grab cash whenever you need it. So, Philip, give me some strategies that you recommend here.
Unfortunately, Jen, I've seen people think they can do that.
Oh, boy.
And it has bitten them pretty bad when it comes tax time, right? So one of the things that you look at is you need to have a strategy for withdrawing that money from those accounts. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Don't just start accessing money and taking it out just whenever you want to.
Willy-nilly, I think, is the...
That's right. Willy-nilly. That's the word I was looking for.
Technical term.
Right? So we want to have a distribution strategy in place. And there's several that you can use. right? So one would be take a fixed dollar amount out, whether that's every year, every month, every quarter. Typically, I know when we look at that, and that's kind of where we look at starting with is a fixed dollar amount that we adjust for inflation periodically. And that usually works the best because, and a monthly distribution, I think, works the best because people are used to getting that paycheck every month, right? It comes in, their pension comes in every month, their Social Security comes in every month. Hey, here's one more distribution comes in every month to pay their bills with. So that's the fixed dollar withdrawal. You pick out what you need within reason, right? That's why you need to have the income plan to make sure that you don't take out too much at one time, because that can be devastating to your total retirement plan. So the other one that you can use is limit withdrawals to just the income that your portfolio produces, right? Okay. You're just going to take the income out. You're not going to take any principal out, which that gives you some fluctuations, right? Because your income could be down one month and up the next month, because a lot of times if you have a stock portfolio, well, everybody pays dividends at a different point in time. So one company's quarter is not another company's quarter. So that could be, it gives you an uneven stream of income there. So, but it's an option, and people do that. They'll just take the dividends off their portfolio, and that's the income they use. The other thing you have to be careful on that one, though, is that you may not take enough. If you're having to take RMDs, that may not give you enough to cover your RMDs. So you have to make sure you run those calculations. Okay. Yeah. The other is you create some kind of income floor. So, you look at your accounts and decide at what point does your income kind of floor out. This is a minimum I need, and that's my income floor. And then, hey, everything else is going to get reinvested. Bucket your money. That's one of our favorites, is to kind of bucket it, and we'll create buckets: emergency bucket, income buckets, and then growth buckets, right? So we know we're going to take money out of the income bucket, and that way it's going to last for our lifetime. Another one, well, let's go back to buckets just a minute, because people, when they look at buckets, sometimes misunderstand. I think it's important that, because people aren't working anymore, they have a hard time figuring out, okay, what's my emergency money? Because, you always tell people, hey, keep 6 months of your income. Right. So if you get laid off, you got that income. Well, you're working, that's fine. But when you're not working, you're retired, well, your income is your income, right? It's your Social Security, your pension, and whatever you take out of your account. So, but I still feel like you need to have a bucket of emergency money, right? So we'll tell our clients, look, you need to have $20,000 to $50,000, depending upon your comfort level, sitting there for emergencies. Appliances go out, or you need a new roof, or something that's major. Granted, a new roof, most likely insurance is going to cover, but they may not cover it today, right? We need to get it paid for. So that's the things we look at there. Another option that a lot of folks use, especially if they have a pension and they don't need any additional money out of their retirement accounts, is they'll just take the minimum RMD, right? They want to minimize what they have to take out. They're only going to take their RMD out. They'll work on other ways to help reduce their taxable income in order to do that. The last one I want to cover, and we do this when we do our income planning specifically, is what account sequences do we use to minimize taxes? So if you have a Roth IRA, hey, we want to mix that into the blend so we're not paying tax on all the money we take out. You have a non-qualified account, we want to mix that into the blend to make sure that we reduce taxes as much as possible when we're taking money out of that income plan. So, those are kind of the areas that you need to look at, and some distribution strategies that are out there. And I'm sure that other folks have created their own type of distribution strategy out there. But I would just caution you that it needs to be something that mathematically it's going to last your lifetime. That's the number one concern I always have. And then make sure that there's some buildup in there to help cover inflation.
So as we are developing that strategy for taking money out of these accounts, how do we figure out how much income we'll need those different accounts to generate in the first place?
Well, it goes back to budgeting, which nobody likes to talk about.
No, it's the worst.
So, and that's why we developed the income plan, because that's going to help us determine where the money's going to come from. So we look at how much are we going to get from Social Security? How much are we going to get from pensions? And then what's the shortfall? Hey, look, if your budget says I need, $5,000 a month, then okay, how much is Mr. and Mrs. Social Security going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a pension that's going to help contribute that 60,000? And then ultimately you have a shortfall. What is that shortfall that I need to make up? And that's what we're going to solve for. A good rule of thumb, and I think we've talked about this in an earlier show, is that the 4% rule, especially in the volatility we're seeing now, you need to throw it out the window because that's probably too much right now. You need to look at maybe a 2.8, 3.2% withdrawal rate. If you're having to take out more than that to meet your expenses, then there's a chance that you could run out of money before you run out of life. And we don't want that to happen to anybody. Jen, that's why we developed our core retirement design to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. And so part of our process is a 30-minute, no obligation, free phone call, 30 minutes of our time to ask us questions that you may have, to see where you're headed, to make sure you're on the right path, and to give you some recommendations to make sure that you are on that right path. It's that simple. All you have to do is give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement phone call. That's all you have to do. It's that simple. And we'll answer your questions and help make sure you're on the right track for retirement.
So bottom line, it's important that we have an income strategy for our retirement. I think you've made that pretty clear. When is the best time to get with a trusted financial partner to make that happen and to take a look at some of the decisions we're thinking about making? Maybe we think we want to do a Roth conversion, but we need somebody to look over this and help us understand all the details that maybe we might be missing.
Well, it's kind of like it's like planning for vacation, right? The earlier you start, the better you are. And so what does that look like for folks? Look, it's never too early. Ideally, you want to start probably 5 years before you're going to retire is kind of the sweet spot, but you can start 10 years before. So if you're in your late 50s, it makes sense. If you're going to work till 65 or 67, it makes sense that in your late 50s to go ahead and start looking at putting together an initial plan to make sure you're on track for your retirement.
So how much should you save for retirement? Where do you save it? How do you make sure it will last after you leave your job for good? Philip, those are some of the questions you probably have if you're getting close to retirement.
Jen, savings is a good start to get ready for the next chapter in your life. But you need to do more than just save. You need to have that income strategy for after you stop earning that regular paycheck. When you don't have money coming in, you need to have a plan for how it goes out. If you're listening to me right now and you don't have an income strategy, folks, I invite you to give us a call. Let us help you see where you're at right now. Talk about budgets. We'll talk about, risks to your portfolio, risks that may threaten your retirement when it comes to stock market volatility, inflation that we're seeing right now. Tax increases coming down the road. These are all things that can eat into your retirement. And we can have a conversation about that in that 30-minute phone call that we'll happily provide you. Learn about different options for generating income in retirement and make sure that your standard of living in retirement stays where it is, even with the rising cost. Folks, this phone call is absolutely complimentary, no cost, no obligation. I'm giving you 30 minutes of our time just to make sure you are on the right path. If you've saved at least $150,000 for retirement, give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your no obligation core retirement phone call. It's that simple, folks. Give us a call, 863-285-3815. Don't let this chance get away, especially if you're 5 years or less away from retirement. Again, that number is 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back.
Hi, this is Philip, wishing you comfort, hope, and joy. Happy holidays.
This is your captain speaking. We're expecting fair skies, a smooth flight, and about a 85% chance or so of making it to our destination. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the flight.
Would you stay on that plane? Of course not. Well, do you have a retirement plan where you probably won't run out of money? You need a plan that no matter the destination will help you get to and through retirement successfully. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services can design a plan to help you get to your destination as comfortably as possible, even if Wall Street or the economy causes some turbulence. Call Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Services team to start working on your plan. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Get a plan designed to allow you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the retirement you've worked so hard for. 863-285-3815. Firm offers insurance services, advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services Incorporated, a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. Right now, watching out for things that could harm your retirement with Philip Statler. And Philip, turns out there are about as many risks to your retirement income as there are James Bond movies, because they just keep coming, right?
One after another, man. It's hard to believe
another.
There's a bunch of them out there.
I know. There's getting close to 30 at this point. And of course, Sean Connery, George Lazenby, I think he just did one, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and our current James Bond happens to be my favorite, Daniel Craig. I don't know. Are you a Bond fan? Do you have a favorite Bond actor?
Daniel Craig better than Sean Connery?
Yeah.
Really?
I believe so. So you're team Sean Connery then?
I do like Sean Connery and Pierce Brosnan. I've always liked him in pretty much anything he's been in.
Yeah.
Those are probably my two favorites.
All right. Yeah, no, I really like Daniel Craig. I think he's pretty good Bond. He's a bit gritty, so it's a little bit different than some of those other ones. But yeah, just like those Bond movies and the guys who play Bond, they just keep coming. They just keep coming, and just like that, those risks to our retirement income just keep coming as well. I don't know, maybe I should have gone through the Bond villains as we talk about the risks to our retirement income, but nobody likes to talk about the bad guy, really. Right. But what are some of those big risks to your retirement income?
Well, if you think about it, I don't know, there's 26 or 30 of them out there, but longevity, which we talked about, is definitely one of them. That the risk of living longer than your money is going to last is just a big thing out there that people are concerned about. Inflation, market volatility, taxes to me could be bigger than anybody ever imagined, given where we are today in the lowest tax situation we've ever seen. There's no way to go but up, and that scares me. So we have to be ready for that. And then obviously long-term care, and like I said, longevity. I think those are the key things I think that retirees really think about and have nightmares about sometimes.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about, we'll kind of take some of these things one at a time, because I can see why you have all these concerns about these different risks, and they just keep coming. Like, life doesn't stop just because we're worried about these things. We have to keep navigating through it while things continue happening all around us. But when we talk about longevity as one of the risks, living a long time does sound like a good thing. So talk about why we use words like risk when we describe longevity as a factor to think about.
Well, I think that, people, one thing that can really cause you to understand how longevity can affect your money is think back, right? If I think, hey, I'm 65, I'm going to live 25 years in retirement. So think back from today, 25 years ago, right? How much was gas? How much was food, milk? Coffee is one of the big things I use as a symbol because I'm a big coffee drinker. But what did things cost back then, and what do they cost today? And take that and go another 25 years into the future, and it really makes you think of, man, my money's got to really grow to keep up with this thing that's called inflation. That is the biggest proponent of longevity, right? It's the biggest factor in our money when it comes to longevity is inflation and expenses getting higher and higher. So I think that's one reason that people really are concerned about living too long.
Talk a little bit about some of the options we have, Philip. If we are worried we could outlive our savings, what are some of the options for dealing with that?
Well, the one that comes to my mind really and truly is annuities. And why? Because annuities were developed just for that one purpose. Way back in the, I don't remember, 1850s, 1860s, whatever it was, that they were developed, by the Presbyterian Church to take care of their ministers in retirement. And they were created for that purpose, to create lifetime income. And so I think that that's a tool that is so often overlooked and underutilized. Now, granted, everything's got to be taken in moderation, because I've seen the opposite, right? I've sat down with people who some annuity salesman has sold them, almost all their money's tied up in annuities. And that's not right either, folks. There's a balance that needs to be made. And so that's what we really look at, is balancing the income need with the growth need, and make sure that we're taking care of both those things, because you don't know how long you're going to live. None of us do. And so we have to be prepared for that 100-year mark. It's becoming more normal than what it ever has before. And so I think we have to be prepared for that. And one way to do that, one tool to use is to use an annuity to provide that income for the rest of your life. And that's really what I do here at Statler Financial, is income planning is one of the big things that we're all about here. And so, knowing how much income you're going to need and developing that plan that provides you with the comfort of knowing that you've got the income to last your lifetime. So it's something you need to have. If you don't have a written income plan and you're 5 years out from retirement, or you've already retired and don't have an income plan, please give me a call and let's start that process today. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Let's get started today to make sure you're on the right path for your retirement. 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is with Statler Financial Services, and we are going over all the risks that can do some damage to your retirement, and they just keep coming. I've heard inflation, Philip, described as the silent killer of retirement income. So if that's such a big concern, what can we do about it?
Well, I think that there's not a lot you can do about inflation itself, right? It's going to happen. It's going to come at you. They call it the silent killer because you don't see it coming, right? It just all of a sudden prices go up and up and up. And so, the only way to really plan for it is to put some kind of inflation protection within your income plan. But what happens if you don't have an income plan? Well, then you don't have an inflation rider built into it. So that becomes an issue. We need to have an income plan in place to help offset some of these obstacles that we've talked about today, and inflation being one of them, longevity being the other one. To me, longevity and inflation kind of go hand in hand, because the reason longevity is such an issue to us is inflation is a big part of it. And so we want to make sure that we've got the right income plan in place to get you not just into retirement, but get you and your spouse through retirement. That's what's important.
So important to make sure we're thinking about these things. Another risk, Philip, what do you do to help keep taxes from taking too much of a bite out of your savings? I mean, how frustrating to do all the work and save as much as you can for retirement, and then get to where it's time to start tapping into those accounts and not think about the taxes and the fact that you don't actually have as much to spend as you thought you did.
One of my favorite people to listen to is Ed Slott, and Ed Slott, he's the IRA guru of the country. He's called on a lot to talk about that, and he always says, you know what, that IRA, that 401k, is not just yours. You have a partner, and that partner's the IRS, and people forget that, right? It's not all your money. Every time you take some out, guess what? IRS is there with their hand out. They want some too. It's one of the things that because of my background in taxation and that I still actually am actively put myself in that place to actually do some returns, I understand what that means. I believe tax rates are going to go up. And so we need to take advantage of the tax situation we have right now, the lowest tax rates we're probably ever going to see. And so we help clients really take advantage of whatever tax situation is out there, from being in a high tax bracket and needing money. Okay, so we have to plan that distribution. Do we have any money that's not retirement money? So we help people decide where to take money from to be as tax efficient as possible. The flip side of that, though, Jen, is that people are in an ultra low tax bracket and they're not taking any money out of their IRAs, or they're taking very little money out of their IRAs. So they're wasting their standard deduction. They're wasting their low tax bracket. And so we bring that to their attention. We help them plan to better use the tax brackets they're in, whether that means Roth conversions or just taking the money out and using it in other ways. But taxes are a big deal. And taxes to me are an area that planning, the planning for taxes is underutilized in our industry. And it's because a lot of times the financial advisors out there, they don't have an understanding of taxes. If they're part of a big company, the big company say, hey, you can't give tax advice. You got to send them down the road for that. And so, those things kind of set us apart, make us a little different than the other folks out there on the street, is because that is my background. And it's something that I still do on a regular basis, is take care of some tax stuff. So it is an area that I think that we bring a lot of value to the table when it comes to retirement planning and tax planning, and wrapping those two things together, Jen, because it is important. It is a big deal. It does play a big role in retirement, and people forget that. Look, the way to get started is you have to know where you are. And the only way to know where you are in terms of your retirement portfolio is a financial x-ray. Give us a call right now and schedule your time to visit with us to put together your financial x-ray. All you have to do is give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Jen, they can also go to our website, statlerfinancial.com. There's a button right there in the top right-hand corner, schedule a visit with Philip. Push that button. You'll have access to my calendar. You can schedule your own time. Best suits you. But do it today, 863-285-3815, or go to statlerfinancial.com, go to our calendar link there, and schedule your appointment there. I look forward to seeing you. Don't wait too long. Do it now.
That's all the time we have on this Statler Financial Radio Show. Thanks for spending some time with us here today. We hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No strategy is guaranteed to be successful. This radio show is a paid placement.